Awesome. Okay. So, hi everybody. This is Dayirai, and I'm here with my friend Kristina, whom I last saw. When did we last see each other?
2012,
2012. Can you imagine that?
12 years ago.
Yes.
It was in the
And
summer
yeah,
at the
yeah. And
waterfront.
by then you had left Hamilton CAS.
No, I was on mat leave.
You were on mat leave.
Yeah,
I'm the one who left.
we left. Um, I had just had my second. I just had Nathan. So
Oh, yes.
he was
Yes.
chubby
I
little
remember.
bunny.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. 2012. You and I coming together to talk about burnout.
Yes.
You have seen me posting about rest and burnout. And you and I started talking about what that actually looks like. And do you know where it takes me back to our CAS days?
I could probably see it taking you back to your McMaster days,
Of course. Oh my goodness.
to be
Mac,
honest.
yes.
I think like it had already started way back because you were juggling so many roles.
Yes.
Um, and successfully. So you're successfully juggling, all these different roles, but you were already starting to lose a part of yourself. It came out in social work and it came out in motherhood and so forth, but it wasn't like you had carved out time to be you. You had
Mhm.
carved out time for everybody else and you succeeded um extraordinarily with everything else, but I don't think in those moments you could say, this is who I am.
No.
No. So your burnout started way before your days at CAS because you had no choice almost but to put yourself in burnout mode in order to be successful.
That is so true. As you talk, I'm thinking of moving to a new country with an 8-month-old baby and then trying to adjust to the new country.
Yes.
And then Mark, Sean was, so Mark Master 2005. Sean was four. So four, five, six, around, that's his age around over the time I was doing my undergrad. And so you're juggling parenting and single parenting also, and being new, so resettling and wanting to speed the process up to stability and then going into social work. Oh my goodness. I remember days that I would cry after class. I would cry. I'll just sit and cry on the bus back to Burlington, or once I had a vehicle, sit in the car and just cry and then go home and be, hey, I'm
Yes.
okay. And
Yes.
then go to work and go to school and be
Yeah.
mom.
Be mom. And I mean, Sean was, and I don't know now, so I'm just gonna say, like, from back then, was always a well-mannered, polite, well cared for young man. So I'm gonna assume that he is the same, well educated, um, and polite, well-mannered man, because that's what he is now. Right? If we do the math, um, he is well into manhood.
Yeah. Oh, he's a lovely young man. He's a lovely young man. And I could say the same thing about you and Alex and Nate as well. Because when we did meet, I mean, yes, you didn't have babies yet when we met. For Q03. Was it for Q03?
Sure was. Somehow they thought that I'd be good in like a TA role, which is hilarious. But hey, it was the best. I had the best group, and I think that's what made it so successful. best group.
And that's where you and I met, and that's how we connected because you were our facilitator for that anti-oppressive class. And Rebecca and I remember the group work that we had to do, and the rest of the group we were not getting along with. So Becca and I decided that we were going to just do the whole project by ourselves.
Yes.
And we did that whole poster by ourselves, and of course had marks taken away because it was supposed to be a group project and we did not work very well with the rest of the team. Yeah.
No, but even at that point, you stood out on your own, like even in that class. So to know where you are now in your journey, it's not a surprise. Um, and I think that's why you didn't work well in that group because people were there because they had to be. You were there because it was almost like a calling. So there's a difference when you have a job and a career. Usually a career is like a calling. Like you don't become a nurse because you have nothing else to do. You become a nurse because it's a calling to you. You're a healer. You're a healer and an educator, which you have to have a very, very special personality and desire to give back because anyone really with the right skills can do minimal healing. But when you're taking an educating role as well and a healing role, that takes a lot. So even back, way back then in 04, 05, and 6, because that's when I was there. So I think it was 06 when it was
When you and I met,
yeah,
because you were senior and you were doing the
yeah,
facilitation. So
I was leaving.
yeah, because that was our 2BB3 class, was it? No, 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 no. What was it? I
I
don't
think it
know.
was
I just know it was Gary's class.
Wilson.
It was the anti-oppressive practice, and we
Yes,
were doing, and we were combined with labor studies students. So it was social work and labor studies, which
yes,
is where the clash
yes,
probably came in.
huge.
Um, and
But
and
it wouldn't have
you,
it wouldn't have mattered even if we put you in with and you weren't just coming into university. You were older, you had more experience. So you were already coming with a different luggage of experience, right? You're pulling this luggage. You're a parent, you're a daughter, a sister, you're new to the country, you're working, you have a lot more experience coming in. So you were going to clash because some of the students were significantly younger, not having the same experience.
and our priorities in life were quite different. So
Oh,
what I was looking to go to and what I was working towards was very different. Um, because I had a vision, I had responsibilities, and I needed to make sure that they were met. So let's switch things over to you. Your undergrad, what did burnout look like? Was that even a thing? Was rest even a thing for you at that time, Chris?
um, no. So when this was so I had already done an undergrad at Brock University. So this was my second. So I only had to do my BSW.
Mhm.
So at the time, I was working 2 jobs while going to school full time and doing a placement. So my first placement was fantastic. I had had surgery on my knee.
Mhm.
So I did my placement with the university, with the School of Social Work, with Sandra Preston. So
Oh,
it was great. It was the best placement. I've had 4 or 5 of them. So that was one of my best placements. I'd always wanted to do research and writing. So that fit perfectly. And I didn't have to really travel, which was great because I was on crutches for a good period of time with my knee surgery. So it ended up great, ended up presenting at York that summer with Sandra Preston. So worked out super, super well. And then let's flip to the next one, which was at a hospital. So I did my second placement at Shadok at the acquired brain injury unit, which was phenomenal. I think like within the first 3 or 4 days, I was almost like dazed and confused as to what really can happen with a brain injury. Kind of knew, but then when you go in and then you see how fragile life can be, it really throws you. I also wasn't a teenager. I was past my mid 20s. Right? Like I was 27. So 26, 27 when I had done that placement. So I had already had the life experience. I had worked in group homes. I had worked in secure custody with youth. I worked at the casino. Like I had experience. And so then when that was thrown at me, and at that same time I was doing that, I was also working 2 other jobs and going to school.
Oh, I lost you. Chris. Uh-oh. I lost you.
Okay, yes. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
was
you're back.
yeah, I was just always busy. So
Yeah.
um it's not that I didn't rest, but it wasn't often and it wasn't well, if that makes any sense.
It does. And the question is, what drove you to work like that? And the irony of that question is that I was kind of doing the same thing too. So what was driving the need to have 2 jobs, work and school? Because school again, I'm sure, like I know I was taking full courses, so I had a full course load. I'm pretty sure you were doing the same thing too. So
Well, no, because I got lucky because I didn't have to do
you
two
did?
undergrads, right? I had already done one.
Oh, yes. So you didn't have to take
I didn't have to
all
take,
the,
yes,
yeah.
all
Okay.
all the courses. Um, so that's why I think I was able to work so much. It was almost like, oh, I have free time. Um, I think a lot of that obviously stems back to childhood and perfectionism, right?
Yeah.
So that's fawning. So fawning is people pleasing and perfectionism. And so a part of my personality and my response to trauma is fawning, is
Mhm.
making sure everybody's okay, doesn't matter about me, everyone needs their needs met. And so I did that a lot. And if everything was perfect or near perfect, I didn't have to have any backlash. I didn't have to worry about anyone saying that I was lazy or unmotivated or, not looking to the future. So I kept myself busy and no one could say anything because I wasn't lazy and unmotivated and not doing anything. I was doing a lot of things all at once.
It's amazing, this whole people pleasing piece,
Yes.
which needs to be really unpacked in how it looks and how it manifests in our lives. Um, it's again seeing you because this is the first time you and I are actually having this conversation. I think we normalized that life. It was just that's what you do. That's what you gotta do. Work, school, and for me, parenting and everything else that came with. And at one point, it was 2 jobs and a full course load and parenting. And I think my driving force was I was saying by the time I graduate, I need my CV to look a certain way so that it can take me into the job that I want to be in. And I knew I always wanted to get into private practice and have my own, or be my own boss. So from day one, everything that I was doing was leading me where I am at right now, but not without a cost. It was such a cost. I remember times when I would be awake in the middle of the night. And that was the only time that I had to clean the house. So I would be moving furniture around and cleaning, and you and I are both kind of similar in terms of, again, how we want our spaces to look, which
Yes.
is an interesting piece too, because I'm like, what drives that need to have the space?
Perfect space.
And
Perfect.
and it's never perfect.
No, but
That's
it's
the thing.
perfect for us.
Perfect for us. Exactly.
A lot of that for me, and I don't know if it is for you, is working in child protection for 13 years and seeing some of the ways in which people had no choice but to live. I kind of took that I need to be more grateful of my space. And so I need to keep it to a certain standard, but it's for me. I can say that is for me. It's for nobody else. Nobody actually really comes into my space. I've isolated myself to that point that
Um,
no one comes um, by choice because it's part of my healing.
mhm.
So I have done that, but to keep the space looking a specific way is for me. It's the way I feel comfortable in my home.
And that makes sense. Goodness, girl, did you say 13 years?
I did. I did.
In child warfare. Oh, Chris. Yeah, I couldn't last 3 years. And do you know how many times you and I cried together
Yes.
in
Yes, I do.
those office spaces? Do
Yes.
you remember how much we were crying?
Yes. But
Pretty
I
much
always
almost every week,
once or twice
once or twice, we were crying. And it's
on the
not,
phone or in person.
and
Yeah.
it was not like, oh, sweet crying. This was like crying,
Sobbing. Yeah. Of like, what are we doing with our
sobbing
lives? Yes. Yeah.
at work. And then I just remember how your eye colors changed, and it'll be like this lovely emerald green color because you were crying. And as I look back and I'm thinking, that became normal, that I seek you out and then we cry, or you seek me out and then we cry. And maybe it was coping, but that is not healthy. That's not how work ought to be. You
No,
cannot be crying at work, you know?
it shouldn't
And
be.
I remember the summer that I resigned from work, and I resigned without a job. I walked in and I decided, because I remember going to visit my sister in England. But the day I left, because I had court and affidavits that I was supposed to write and finish, and I left the office probably 6 p.m. and went straight to the airport. I was supposed to be at the airport, and Sean was with me at work.
Oh,
That's how bad it was. It was just like, I cannot leave without this stuff done. So I was working up till we took our taxi to Pearson. And when I got to my sister's, I remember the first 2, 3 days, I could not do anything. All I could do was just lay in bed.
mm,
All I could do was just lay in bed. And thank God for Stacy. Stacy looked after me and she did not ask questions. She was just, and then the rest of that holiday, I was applying for jobs. I was at a computer just applying for jobs and applying for jobs because I knew I could not handle child welfare. I could not go back in. I just could not. So we are taught that you cannot walk away from work without having another job to walk into. Because again, we all work for a reason. You need to keep a roof over your head. You need to keep food on the table. You need to keep, clothes on your back. And when you're a mother, you have additional responsibility. I had to look after my son. And all I could think of was, I'm not going on Ontario Works. I'm not going back on Ontario Works because I was on Ontario Works when I first came to the country. So I was just like, I'm not going back. I refuse. But what am I going to do? It's either I'm going to collapse at work or I am going to choose me. So how do you choose you? And that turmoil, I remember it. It was hard. So when we came back home, I I went into the office and I sat at my desk, and it must have been the Holy Spirit, who knows? And I just said, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. I welcome the consequences of being done.
Yes.
Done. So right there and then, I wrote my resignation, my letter of resignation. I gave them 3 weeks or 4 weeks, I don't remember, because they had given me a loan to buy a computer. So I needed them to take their money back. And I walked it to HR and just said, this is it, I'm done. Immediately, I felt free.
Yes.
It was like the weight of the world literally just came off.
Yeah.
It just felt so good, even though I didn't have a job to go to. It felt so good, Chris.
Yes. Yeah. And that's severe burnout. Like that's severe, right? When it's to that point where you're non-functional, that is severe. And workplaces are aware that their workers are in that position and they don't provide the support or the time to rest and heal. And child protection, unfortunately, is notorious for
Mhm.
pushing their workers to the brink of almost insanity,
Yes.
right? Like to the where we forget ourselves. Yes, I am grateful that I had the opportunity to set my own schedule so that I didn't miss any of my kids' appointments or whatever, cross country, games, etc. But there was a price to pay. I worked a significant amount of overtime. So even though I was able to go to medical appointments, I missed dinner, right? So it was like, it was a dance with the devil. You were dancing with the devil. Nothing was ever enough. You never did enough. And if you were in a traumatic situation, you're fine.
Mhm.
You're safe now. You're over it. It's like, no. And I had been in several at the end of my career. And every time it was kind of fluffed off. Like it was just like, you're fine. Don't worry about it. You're safe now. You're at the office. There's no one around. And then it was made that I was over exaggerating it.
Oh my goodness. And
So
why did you go into that space by yourself? You know that when you've assessed that it's a risky home, you're supposed to find a colleague to go
yes,
into the space with. But which colleague am I going to go with? Everybody is busy with their own caseloads. And I can't
well,
call the
yes,
police every single time I need to go into a home, because the whole point is to build relationships, to minimize this power imbalance that we have when we're walking into people's space. Like, can you imagine somebody coming into your home, Chris, and speaking to you about Alex and Nate and how to parent? I can't even imagine somebody coming into my home and talking to me about Sean and like, are you kidding me? And that
you get
is
in my
what
door.
I carried with me all the time. And to think that you're walking into space, and then for me, it became even more interesting. I'm going to use that word.
Yes.
When the first time I walked into a space and I was told, well, we don't want to work with you. We want a white worker.
Mm,
We're not working with a black person. Now I'm in your space. Yes, I have this power, as the child protection worker or family support worker or whatever we called ourselves. But all of a sudden, there's now a personal element to it, and I have to remain professional. And I have to know that I am safe in that space. Walk
Right.
into a space where a parent punches the wall beside your head and you're kind of going, breathe, breathe. On the inside, you're telling yourself, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. You'll get out. Where's the door? Or how do I walk out of here and walk out in a way that still maintains? I had a parent at one point follow me to the car and literally stand in front of my car and would not allow me to drive off. And
Yeah.
it's such a scary space to be in. We are trained to be social workers. We're not trained to be police officers. We're not taught how to have, self-defense. We do not do like that awareness of your space in terms of your self-preservation, your own protection as a person. We've read in news where social workers have been killed in the spaces that they walk into. I mean, it's not often, but it happens
Yes.
because we walk into these spaces and we're given the authority to knock on a door and to enter into a space and to have these conversations, to walk into somebody's home and walk through the house, assessing, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but we're not taught how to take care of ourselves. I don't know how, like,
But
do you get
that's
what I'm saying?
exactly what I was going to say, actually, is that social workers are taught soft skills. Okay, so we are taught soft skills. I'm very highly proficient at engaging narcissistic personalities because that apparently is my expertise, and child death. So those are the two things that I'm well known for, is engaging difficult parents or difficult clients and dealing with children dying. So within these realms, it's like, so I'm taught to be soft, I'm taught to be whatever. I can sit across from murderers because I have, and I could engage them in conversation non-judgmentally. Meanwhile, you're right. In your head, you're thinking, am I going to get out alive? Why am I doing this job? This does not pay enough, right? So, like, all these things are going through our heads, but we're just being soft towards them. Where are those hard skills, those boundaries that we put in place as social workers of like, nope, we are not going to have that conversation. This is what it is, and this is, and you kind of learn that throughout the job, but you don't go in with them. So you already go in unprotected as a social worker. These things need to be taught in school, of
Yeah.
how to protect yourself, how to do self-care. And I'm not talking about going to the spa. I am talking about the raw healing that you need to do when you are faced with the trauma of social work. There's, ethical trauma, moral trauma, straight trauma that you are dealing with. And then you're dealing with other people's trauma. How do you heal? Well, they don't tell you that. They don't teach you that. They don't, the expectation is that you go in
Knowing what?
knowing how to take care of ourselves and heal from all the crap that we are thrown as social workers. Sometimes like gently thrown, and sometimes like with a slingshot, and you have a target on your back. How do you set your boundaries and keep your boundaries in the community, as well as with your employer if you have one, and with yourself? The first one you're going to lose is with yourself.
Mhm.
Oh, that's okay. I'll just do this over time. It'll be fine. And then, let's just say 100 hours later, you're exhausted to the point that you're having nightmares, that you're not sleeping, that your anxiety is so high, you're not eating properly. And then your systems start to shut down. And you don't even realize what happens internally when you go into burnout.
And then you're not available for your children. You're not available in your home the way you need to be available. This is where when, sometimes as parents, we find ourselves starting to be irritable, snapping, not being fully present. I remember my child protection days. One day, in a daze, I am cooking, I have a casserole dish in the oven, but I'm doing multitasking. I have all these other things that I'm supposed to be doing. I open the oven to check on whatever it was, and I put cold water in the casserole and it shatters. So when it shattered, that's when I stopped
Yeah.
and I just stood and looked. And then you start walking back and saying, what was I thinking? Where was I when all of this was happening?
Yes.
What's going on? How did I get here? And
Well,
how do I, because it's not even retracing. So we're talking 20, like we're talking what, 2000 and let's say 2012, if we're going to go to the end of my child welfare days. And here we are, 2024, and I am talking about a rest deficit. And I'm
yeah.
realizing now that it's been accumulative over the years. It's just never been taken care of. It's been like band-aids.
Yes. Yeah. Right. You put a band-aid over a stab wound. Like it's going to hold for a little while, but sooner or later it's going to pop open. And then you just put another little band-aid over top. Or
Mhm,
then you just tape it up.
mhm.
I just wanted to go back because you were talking about the shattering and thinking like how did I get here? Because part of burnout is disassociation. And in the beginning of our careers, when we try to talk about the trauma, it's normalized. And so it's almost like it comes, we don't know what should we do. So we just kind of disassociate with it for a bit. Didn't happen. It's fine. I'm fine. I am fine. It was nothing. Um, and so that's literally it is that trauma happens or something happens and we can disassociate very clearly. And sometimes that disassociation doesn't just last for, minutes or hours, but it's days. And then you kind of realize like, hold on a second, how did I how did I get here? Like, how did this snowball into 12 years later? I'm still in a rest deficit. I'm still burnt out. I'm still healing from trauma that happened 12 years ago because it's like, okay, it's done, it's over with. Whoop, we're going to push it to the side and on to the next task and on to the next and the next and the next and the next, where elements of that seeps in because it's everywhere you look. For me, there's a reminder of a traumatic event.
Yeah.
It's a trigger. So then you disassociate quickly for a moment or two and then you're like, okay, yeah, I'm good, I'm just going to be present. It's going to be present. Like I'm just 7, almost 8 months off of work, and only now am I beginning to realize that in those last, say, 7.5 months, I haven't rested
Mhm.
because my body is so riddled with trauma and burnout that I don't know what will happen if I stop.
Girl. So we have a minute left in our conversation, and we'll carry on this conversation because it's needed. And I am so happy and so glad and so grateful that you and I reconnected. And I just like
I know. I love you too.
exactly.
No time can pass where my love for you is going to go away. It grows and grows and grows. And so there was a period of time where we didn't speak. I know that there was the unspoken word of support that was always there.
Yeah.
But now we can give each other that spoken word of
Yeah.
advice and support and just listening to hear one another, because people don't listen to hear, they listen to respond.
Yeah.
Just listening to hear.
Across provinces.
That's
Don't
right.
you just love technology?
That's right.
Yeah, maybe I'll come back to
I was
Ontario.
just gonna say, I'll come visit.
Yes, please come. I would love that. Yeah, so I'm gonna end us here, and then for everybody that has taken the time to listen to us, this is just a conversation between two social work friends, and we're hoping that you will get at least something out of this conversation about the importance of rest in a world that teaches us that we should just keep going, going. There is that saying that our children are only as healthy as we are. And I think it goes again to the people that we serve in the spaces as people that chose this profession, or whom like serving is a calling, um, that we need to take care of ourselves in order for us to be fully present for those whom we serve. But the most important piece is we have to be alive and we have to be thriving, and we can't be doing that if we're not making time for rest. Chris, we have to make time for rest.
Agreed.
Any last thoughts?
Many, but the same, I just want to thank everyone for listening in, and I'm hoping that we can continue the conversation, and let people know that it's okay to rest.
Bye.